All right, everybody, welcome to Chapter 8. Chapter 8 is going to be on exponents. So we're looking at a couple things first. We're going to look at what are some different terminology for types of exponents. First one we have is standard form. Standard form is nothing new. It's our normal, like 23,000. So it's a normal digit system that we've been using, and it's the one that we're going to continue using. However, the two new ones we're looking at are exponential form and expanded form. And exponential form you should have seen before in the past. So you've seen something like 2 to the 4th. And these two numbers here, so the 2, is always called the base. So that's our base. So it's the bottom. It's what everything is worked around. It's the base. It's what everything else is based off of. And our 4 either has two numbers, so that's either called the exponent, or a lot of times that's called the power. So here, like 2 to the 4th power, to the 3rd power, something like that. And then expanded form is kind of the one that always takes the longest time. So if you take that 2 to the 4th, expanded form is showing exactly what operations you're doing. So with 2 to the 4th, what you're really doing is you're saying you're doing 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So you are expanding out this form to make it longer. So instead of taking up this much space, it now takes up that much space. So that's our exponential form, short, quick, has an exponent. Expanded form, a little bit longer, takes up a little more room. Okay, so just some vocabulary for you. What we're going to look at is how do we use these things, and how do we write these out in expanded form. So how would you write out 4 to the 3rd times 4 to the 5th in expanded form? So first thing we have 4 times 4 times 4. So that is our 4 to the 3rd. And we're multiplying that by 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 times 4. So we've got our first 3 4s there, and our next 5 4s there. That's going to be a really big number when you actually do the multiplication, but I'm not going to require you to do that right now. We're talking about how do you expand it out. Now the question I have for you is, how would you put that 4 times 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 4 back into exponential form? And what you do is you can compress that back down, and since it looks like we've got, 8 4s there, we can really compress that back down and say, okay, well that's really 4 to the 8th. And the question is, how do you get that? Well, your bases always have to be the same. So both these have a base of 4. And what you're going to do is you're going to add the power. So you have a power of 3 here, a power of 5 there, and the 3 plus the 5 gives you the 8. It's kind of a shortcut. So looking at how about 5 to the 2nd times 5 to the 3rd, expanded form would be 5 times 5. So that's our first set. And we're multiplying that by 5 times 5 times 5. So that's our second set of these. So we've got 5. All of our 5s written out. And if you want to compress that back down into exponential form, it would be 5 to the 5th, because we have 5 5s. So again, bases have to be the same, and then adding the exponents, 2 and 3. Good. All right. Next thing we're looking at is how do you generalize this? So in this case, we have a to the m times a to the n. So what that means is, again, we've got our bases the same. So what would we do with our m and n? And with any of the cases we had before, we added those two together. So we know that it's m plus n. So a to the m times a to the n, a to the m plus n. Again, those bases have to be the same. So 3 to the 2nd times 3 to the 3rd, which is the one we had before. You would do 2 plus 3, which is 3 to the 5th. 7 to the 50th times 7 to the 34th would be 7 to the 50 plus 34, which is 7 to the 84th. 3 to the 3rd times 4 to the 3rd. Now, most people would think, like, oh, we're going to make that to the 6th power because you add those together. You can't. So this has to say exactly the same, because the bases, the 4 and the 3, aren't the same. So because those aren't the same, we can't do anything with them. All right, there's a couple more. So I want you to take and hit pause on your recorder or your player right now, and take a second and try these 4 on your own. Then we'll get back together and look through each of them in just a second. All right, so welcome back. We got 47 to the third times 47. So in this case, we have an imaginary 1 up here because there's only one of those 47s. So this gives us 47 to the fourth. Our second one, 15 to the x times 15 to the y, gives us 15 to the x plus y. You can combine them like that, having that plus sign in there. Our next one, 2 to the third times 2 to the fifth times 2 to the seventh, would be 2, and we're adding 3 plus 5 plus 7 together. So that should give us 15, so 2 to the 15th. This last one's kind of tricky. 2 to the third, x to the third, times 2 to the fourth, x to the ninth. And how this works is we're going to match these up with our bases. So our 2 2's are going to be together, so that would be 2 to the 7th. And our x's we're going to match up, so that'd be x to the 12th. So 2 to the 7th, x to the 12th. All right, hope this has given you a little bit of a chance to work through and remember some of the things you've done with exponents in the past, and give you a chance to review. And we will get back together tomorrow in class.